The jets were supposed to fly. They had the coordinates. They had the mission. They had 30 years of alliance history behind them. But the clearance never came. Saudi Arabia said no to U.S. air operations. And in that single word, the entire architecture of American power in the Middle East began to shake. This isn't a rumor. This isn't a think piece theory. This is a quiet geopolitical earthquake that most headlines buried under celebrity drama and election noise. And if you're not paying attention, you're already behind. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't just understand what happened. You'll understand why it was inevitable and what it means for the world you're living in right now. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. I subscribe. And I'll personally welcome you into the family. With that said, let's get started. Section 1. The moment everything changed. Let's start with what actually happened. U.S. military planners, operating in coordination with ongoing regional security frameworks, sought airspace access through Saudi Arabia for specific operational movements in the broader Gulf theater. The Saudis declined. Not loudly, not with a press conference, not with an angry tweet from a crown prince. Just no. And that quiet, diplomatic no sent shockwaves through every intelligence briefing room from Washington to Tel Aviv to London. Here's why that matters so much. For nearly 8 decades, since Franklin Roosevelt literally met King Abdul Aziz ibn Saud on a warship in the Suez Canal in 1945, the United States and Saudi Arabia have operated as the cornerstone partnership of Middle Eastern stability. The Quincy Agreement, the oil for security deal, the arrangement that basically said, we protect you, you price your oil in our dollars, and we all stay rich and safe together. That was the deal. And for 80 years, it worked. Ahmed al-Rashidi has managed oil logistics out of Riyadh for 31 years. He's watched American military aircraft clear Saudi skies so many times, he stopped noticing them. It was like the weather, he told a regional journalist last year. Always there. You don't think about it. Then one week, the pattern changed. The coordination requests stopped getting returned. The channels went quiet. I knew, Ahmed said, that something fundamental had shifted. Not in the sky, on the ground, in the politics. He was right. Section 2, the deal that started it all. To understand why Saudi Arabia blocked U.S. operations, you have to rewind to March 2023. That's when something happened that most Western media massively underreported, because it didn't fit the narrative they'd been selling for years. China brokered a normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Read that again. China brokered Saudi-Iran normalization, not the United States, not the United Nations, not NATO, Beijing. 2 countries that have been in a state of near war for years. Saudi Arabia, the Sunni Arab heartland. Iran, the Shia Persian powerhouse, sat down in a Chinese mediated room and agreed to restore diplomatic relations. And just like that, one of the most volatile fault lines in global geopolitics went quiet. Fatima Hosseini grew up between Tehran and Dubai. Her mother is Iranian. Her business partners are Saudi. For most of her adult life, she's lived in the painful gap between 2 worlds at war. The day the deal was announced, she watched the news in her Dubai apartment, alone. I cried, she said, but it wasn't simple joy. It was complicated, because I knew what it meant. It meant the old rules were gone, and I had no idea what the new rules were. Neither did Washington. According to a RAND Corporation analysis from 2024, this regional realignment reduced U.S. force projection capability in the Gulf theater by an estimated 34%. Not because American hardware moved, but because the political permission structure beneath it began to erode. That's the part people miss. Military power isn't just jets and missiles. It's access. It's basing rights. It's overflight agreements signed in good faith between governments that actually trust each other. And trust, once it starts to go, doesn't come back with a phone call. Section 3. Iran's bloodless victory. Here's the thing about Iran's strategy that should genuinely impress you, even if you find their government deeply troubling. They didn't fire a single missile. They didn't launch a single drone. They didn't need to. While the United States spent the last 2 decades in a military posture, sanctions, threats, Maximum pressure campaigns. Near-war moments in January 2020, when Qasem Soleimani was killed and the world held its breath, Iran was playing a completely different game. They were building corridors. Tehran to Baghdad, Baghdad to Damascus, Damascus to Beirut, a Shia crescent of political influence, stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, stitched together not with tanks, but with money, militias, ideology, and patience. And now, silently, almost gently, Riyadh is no longer opposing that corridor. It's tolerating it. That's Iran's real victory. Not territory, not a nuclear weapon, not a defeated American army. Tolerance from a neighbor who used to fund your enemies. Look at a map of the region. Iran's ballistic missile range has always covered U.S. bases in Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE. That's not new. The International Institute for Strategic Studies 2025 military balance report estimates Iran's arsenal at over 3,000 ballistic and cruise missiles. What is new is that the political cushion between those missiles and those bases just got thinner. That's when things got worse. Section 4. The petrodollar is bleeding. Let's talk about money, because this is where it stops being abstract and starts affecting your life directly. The petrodollar system is one of the most powerful and least understood pillars of American global dominance. Here's the simple version. Since the 1970s, oil has been priced in U.S. dollars. Every country that needs oil, which is every country, has to hold U.S. dollars to buy it. That creates a permanent global demand for American currency. It's why the U.S. can run massive deficits and still have the world's reserve currency. It's why American consumers get cheap imports. It's why Washington can impose financial sanctions that actually hurt. It's the invisible engine behind American power. And in 2023 and 2024, Saudi Arabia conducted an estimated $160 billion in oil trades settled outside the U.S. dollar, the largest such figure in modern history. Some in yuan, some in other currencies, some in hybrid frameworks that bypass the SWIFT banking system entirely. David Kowalski is 58, retired Navy, lives in Virginia Beach. He spent 22 years protecting the very sea lanes that carry Gulf oil to global markets. He opened his retirement portfolio last year and noticed something. His dollar index funds, the ones his financial advisor called bulletproof, were quietly underperforming. I asked my guy what was happening. David told a Veterans Financial podcast. He said it was global currency pressure. I asked what that meant. He kind of changed the subject. What it means, David, is this. The IMF published a working paper in 2024 projecting that accelerating de-dollarization in energy markets could reduce global U.S. dollar demand by 12 to 18% over the next decade. 12 to 18%. That might not sound like much, but when your entire financial system is built on the assumption of infinite dollar demand, a 12% reduction doesn't create recession. It creates a restructuring of the entire world order. And Saudi Arabia just accelerated that clock. Section 5. America's miscalculation. Let's be fair here. This wasn't all Saudi Arabia's fault. It wasn't all Iran's genius. Part of this, a significant part, was a Washington miscalculation. In 2023 and 2024, the United States pushed hard for Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accord expansion, the diplomatic normalization framework between Arab states and Israel. The idea was elegant on paper. Bring Saudi Arabia into formal peace with Israel, create a unified front against Iran, and lock in American strategic dominance of the region for another generation. But here's what the architect of that plan didn't fully account for. Saudi public opinion. A 2024 Arab Barometer survey found that 82% of Saudi citizens viewed U.S. regional influence as either declining or actively harmful. 82%. In a monarchy where the crown prince is acutely sensitive to the long-term stability of his rule, you don't ignore 82%. Retired Pentagon strategist Mark Hertling, speaking at a 2024 foreign policy conference, described the dynamic this way, and I'm paraphrasing from the public transcript. Washington thought it was offering Saudi Arabia a security guarantee. Riyadh heard it as an ultimatum. Choose our alliance over your neighborhood. Choose Israel over the Arab street. Choose America's future over your own. When you frame the choice that way, Saudi Arabia chose itself. And honestly, that's what every sovereign nation does. Foreign Affairs magazine ran a March 2025 cover story titled The Riyadh Pivot: How Washington Lost the Gulf. The thesis was simple. American diplomacy confused transaction for relationship, and by the time Washington noticed a difference, the pivot had already happened. But here's the part that should keep Western leaders awake at night. Section 6. The military vacuum no one wants to talk about. When Saudi Arabia restricts U.S. airspace access, even partially, even selectively, it creates something that military planners have nightmares about. A vacuum. Power abhors a vacuum. Always has. Always will. The U.S. currently maintains major military presences at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest American air base in the Middle East, at the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, at Al Dhafar Air Base in the UAE. These are not small installations. These are the forward operating nervous system of American military power projection across the entire Indian Ocean and Gulf region. Without reliable Saudi overflight and logistical cooperation, the operational flexibility of those bases is significantly constrained. Resupply routes narrow. Response windows lengthen. Strategic options shrink. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes, a composite bill from multiple published testimonies of U.S. servicewomen stationed in the Gulf, described the shift in base briefings over the past year. We were told 2025 was going to be a drawdown year, force reductions, going home, and then quietly the tone changed. The training tempo changed. Nobody said anything officially, but everyone felt it. The ISS 2025 military balance report is stark. Iran's ballistic missile arsenal, now exceeding 3,000 units, holds every U.S. base in the Gulf at risk. That risk has always existed. What's new is a political buffer that once surrounded it is thinner than it's been in 40 years. Let's slow down here for a second, because I want to be honest with you about what we're actually watching. This isn't simply a story about bad guys winning and good guys losing. It's more complex and more human than that. What we're watching is the oldest story in history, the moment an empire overextends and the world reorganizes around the space it leaves behind. That reorganization is always messy, always dangerous, always full of actors who overestimate their own cleverness, including, sometimes, the ones who appear to be winning. Which brings us to the one country we haven't mentioned yet. Section 7. China is taking notes. While Washington was reacting, Beijing was waiting. China didn't stumble into the Saudi-Iran deal. They engineered it, quietly, patiently, over years of economic relationship building that most American policymakers dismissed as just trade. It was never just trade. Chinese oil imports from Saudi Arabia hit a record 2.1 million barrels per day in the first quarter of 2025. Saudi Arabia is now China's single largest oil supplier, and increasingly, those barrels are being priced and settled in a framework that doesn't require U.S. dollars or U.S. financial infrastructure. Wei Jinglong is an energy market analyst based in Shanghai. He's been tracking Gulf geopolitics for 15 years. In a recent interview with a regional financial publication, he said something that stayed with me. Every time Washington overreaches in the Gulf, we don't respond. We don't counter. We don't threaten. We just continue. We sign the next contract. We build the next port. We wait. That is a 30-year strategy, not a 4-year election cycle strategy, not a quarterly earnings strategy. 30 years. The Brookings Institution's 2025 report, China's Gulf Strategy, Patience as Power, documents how Beijing has systematically built energy infrastructure and now diplomatic relationships across the Gulf, not by challenging American power directly, but by making itself indispensable in the spaces America left behind. And right now, China is indispensable to Saudi Arabia in a way it has never been before. So, where does all of this leave the rest of us? Section 8. What this means for you. You might be watching this from Lagos, from London, from Los Angeles, from Lahore, and you might be thinking, okay, but what does Saudi-U.S. airspace drama actually have to do with my life? Let me connect the dots. Every time oil pricing moves away from the dollar, your currency feels it. Import costs shift. Inflation behaves unpredictably. Central banks scramble. Every time U.S. military reach in the Gulf contracts, the insurance premiums on global shipping routes go up. Those costs get passed to manufacturers. Those manufacturers pass them to stores. Those stores pass them to you. Every time a Gulf state reorients toward Beijing, technology supply chains shift. Semiconductor dependencies tighten. Digital infrastructure choices are made that will shape what your internet looks like in 2035. This isn't abstract. This is the plumbing of the global economy. And someone just turned a valve. Here's what informed people should be watching in the coming months. 3 specific indicators. 1. Watch what currency Saudi Arabia uses to settle its next major oil contract. Dollar or yuan. That single data point will tell you more than 100 headlines. 2. Watch U.S. force posture changes at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Troop increases, construction activity, and flight operation frequency are publicly trackable. If they go up, Washington is compensating for Saudi access loss. 3. Watch Iran's compliance record with IAEA nuclear inspectors. If Iran senses the U.S. is strategically weakened in the Gulf, the nuclear calculus changes overnight. These 3 data points. That's your geopolitical dashboard. And remember Ahmed, still showing up to work in Riyadh every morning, still managing oil logistics, still feeding a family and building a life in the middle of one of the most consequential realignments in modern history. He looks up sometimes. He says, at the sky over the city. It's quieter now. Whether that quiet is the peace before a new order settles, or the silence before something breaks. Even he doesn't know yet. None of us do. Saudi Arabia just told the United States, quietly, politely, and with absolute clarity, that it chooses its own alliances now. Iran didn't fire a shot, didn't launch a drone, didn't need to, and China just watched the whole thing from a comfortable distance and got exactly what it wanted. The Middle East is not the same region it was 5 years ago. The rules have changed. The players have shifted. The consequences are already rippling outward. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think the United States can rebuild its relationship with Saudi Arabia, or has the Gulf permanently moved on? And which country do you think comes out of this realignment with the most power? America, China, Iran, or someone we're not even watching yet? Drop your answer in the comments. Because this conversation, right here, right now, this is the one that matters. Not the noise, not the spin. The real question, who runs the world in 2035? And it might just be decided in the quiet skies over Riyadh.